Welcome back. Still tuned in to News and Views of myself, Salailo Makwidiri, and we're going to be switching gears now to our hashtag Africa Focus feature. This is a part of the show where we focus on the African continent, everything and anything that you need to know about our home, the continent of Africa, the politics that are shaping this beautiful, dynamic continent. And before we do that, I asked the question about your response to that 30% tariff hike by the United States on South Africa. And we have a comment on WhatsApp. This person didn't give us their name, but they essentially said, we have to dump America and concentrate on our own local economy. We need to focus on manufacturing and sales. China is also doing it, and it's a big risk if you depend on countries like the US. And I think that's a definitely important point to make. But we're going to expand now. We're going to be heading over to East Africa on a hashtag Africa Focus feature of the day. And we'll be turning our attention, as I mentioned, to Kenya, where the streets of Nairobi are once again clouded with tear gas and smoke, and the cries for justice are being met with bullets. I think it was 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, where at least 10 people have been confirmed dead and 560 arrested, and homesteads being targeted and being under siege. The government says the protesters are criminals. The people say the state has become a criminal state, and it was supposed to be a peaceful commemoration of what Kenyans call Saba Saba, and these protests have reignited nationwide demonstrations. We've seen similar protests earlier this year and last year, if I'm not mistaken. These were largely led by the Gen Zs of Kenya, the young people of Kenya, who are demanding President William Ruto to resign, an end to police brutality, and also action when it comes to the skyrocketing cost of living that has made it difficult for a lot of brilliant young Kenyan people, to survive, to live comfortable lives in a country that they're calling home, and many of them having to relocate, come to places like South Africa, like Europe, like the United States of America, because it has become really, really unbearable for young people to continue staying in Kenya, something that we know also well here in South Africa. I think when I look at Kenya and I look at South Africa, it's almost a mirror image of how young people are essentially being cut out of the economy, and they have to take care of other people because of the historically disadvantaged nature of the majority of the people in the country. So we're going to be unpacking Kenya, the protests that have rocked the country, and also the brutal response from authorities. And we're going to be doing that with Muchesia Anyika. He's a youth leadership and inclusion consultant. He's currently in Nairobi, Kenya, at the eye and heart of the storm, and is going to help us unpack what's really driving this new wave of protests, and whether Kenya is standing on the edge of a constitutional crisis. Muchesia, thank you so much. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you joining us from the capital, Nairobi.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to also join you, Salam Media, from the heart of the East Africa, Nairobi.
No, the pleasure's all ours. I think just paint a picture for our listeners. The last 48 hours in Kenya saw, I think, latest wave of protest. What sparked this latest wave? And the Saba Saba observation and the significance of this day in Kenya's political history. Can you unpack that for us, and how it was tied to the unfortunate events of the 7th of July?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. The Saba Saba celebrations or commemorations are historically part of Kenya, and they have been celebrated over time. The Saba Saba that we just had on Monday was the 35th commemoration of it. It started in 1990 when Kenya was agitating for multipartyism under the KANU regime, which was more or less autocratic in nature, if we can term it that way. So basically this year, and mainly starting from June last year, June 25th, last year, young people have decided to take up and fight for their rights. And it's because in Kenya we believe that every generation has something there that how they contribute to the nation building, and it is becoming very clear that this generation is also very keen to make sure that it does contribute to it. So basically, what young people are calling for is accountability, the rule of law, the rule of law and justice, and also economic emancipation. So it is becoming very clear that also from the other side, now the other side of government, police have been operating with wide impunity in Kenya for a very long time. And this is not just the beginning of it, but I think what young people have done is to just call for accountability, and the public, especially young people, have decided to that enough is enough.
No, definitely, and I wanna stay on that point. The response of the Kenyan authorities and governments to these protests. I think from last year's protests, we've seen very, very harsh and very violent response from the authorities. I mean, just 2 days ago, 10 people are dead, more than 500 are arrested. There are reports of people being killed. There are people that are dying in the custody of the police. Is this the cost of dissent in today's Kenya? What message is the state essentially sending, to the population of Kenya, to the young people of Kenya, by responding the way that it is?
Yeah, I think the right to picket, the freedom of expression is clearly protected in the Constitution of Kenya. That is Article 33 for freedom of expression, and Article 37 for demonstration. Of course, peaceful demonstrations. But we have seen the state retaliate with a lot of brute force through the police. We have also seen state sponsored goons, in quotes, because it is being reported that they are being protected by police or working hand in hand with police. We have also seen an operation by masked elite squad of the what is being reported as the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, the DCI, and it is not going well, especially with the young people. But also it comes from a point of desperation, because if you look at even the social media, we've reached a place where young people are saying that if it's about dying for my country, then it's okay. Let me go and die for my country, as long as my children will be, or our future generation will be treated better in their own country.
And I think it's very, very important that you mention social media, because one of the sparks of these protests was the killing of Kenyan blogger Albert Ojwang, whose death in the custody of the police, as I mentioned, was one of the sparks of these mass protest actions. Can you give us a bit more insight on Albert Ojwang, his death, and ultimately why it was one of the reasons why the young people of Kenya went out to the streets to demand accountability and action from the authorities?
Okay, it is said that Albert Ojwang was killed in police custody, and it is said that he was arrested because of calling out corruption allegation against the Deputy Inspector General of Police, and thereby he met his death in police cells. And I think Albert Ojwang death became just a trigger to the current wave of demonstrations, which is calling out against police brutality. But generally, I think what is happening in the country, most of the issues that young people, or the issues that are causing demonstrations, are just triggers to the bigger problem, which is more of an economical problem and a social problem. For example, lack of employment. We have very many young people who have gone to school and they don't have employment. So a death in police custody, such as for Albert Ojwang, easily triggers the young people to go back to the streets based on the historical points or historical injustices and brutality of the Kenya police.
Hmm. Hmm. Can you say we are slowly witnessing a total breakdown of law enforcement accountability and democracy as a concept in Kenya? Are we seeing Kenya teetering on something that is, common in a lot of countries on the African continent, and this regime is making sure that it happens? What we've seen in other parts of the country, of the continent, where it's authoritarian, democratic practices and accountability is largely being ignored, and there's no any sense of enforcement accountability of any kind. Is Kenya on the grip of a democratic collapse, or I would be overstating the reality?
Okay, I don't want to say that Kenya is on the brim of democratic collapse. In fact, I tend to believe that Kenya is on the brim of democratic growth and enhancement. However, I need to state that accountability for police violence in Kenya remains elusive due to a mixture of systemic, institutional, and political barriers. So, what is happening in Kenya is just that there is a generational struggle in this manner that there is a very youthful generation with a lot of energy but nothing to do, very educated and not employed. Personally, I have friends who have even master's level degrees, but they don't have jobs. So that generational struggle is it's like a time bomb. Even former President Uhuru Kenyatta talked about this. It was bound to happen. It's not, I don't think it's even about William Ruto as president. It's about the broken system that is not serving the people. And I think that is the system that young people want to break.
I think very, very important to note that. Muchesia, you work quite closely, with young people and young leaders in Kenya. What are they telling you? What are their fears, and most importantly, what keeps them returning to the streets despite the violence and some of the losses that are being incurred?
I think young people are very hopeful that their country will someday change, that they will experience the kind of accountability that is required. They will have an education and still get employment without too much struggle in their own state. We are also seeing people calling out for a dream Kenya where education is free, a dream Kenya where the rule of law applies to everybody equally. And this one, I will take the example of even the case of Albert Ojwang. You see the junior officers together with the OCS of the police station where he was reportedly brutalized to death were arrested, but the Deputy Inspector General of Police still has not been arrested equally. Although we hear that he wrote statements with the Independent Police Oversighting Authority, but there is still a call for accountability. So I believe that what many young Kenyans are talking about is the hope for a new Kenya, for a better Kenya. In fact, people are calling for a rebirth of Kenya, rebirth of Kenya through leadership, generally a renaissance of an accountable leadership, especially to the issues of the rule of law and an economic empowerment of the general population for the social good. And if you see, for example, chants like Ruto must go, it's basically a call for the renewness of the social contract. In this manner, I believe that even if William Ruto, as president, decided that he is going to drastically change and make and live up or listen to the young people more, then I don't think young people have really that deep interest with who is the leader, but how is the system working for them.
No, definitely. Muchesia, we're going to leave it on that note. Thank you so much for chatting to us and breaking down the raw truth of Kenya's deepening crisis. It's a story that we'll be following quite closely because I think it's undeniable that Kenya is a very, very important, player on the African continent. And when anything and everything happens, especially in the East African region, when Kenya sneezes, everyone catches a cold. So very, very important that we have these conversations, and looking forward to chatting to you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
There you go. That was Muchesia Anyika coming to us live from Nairobi. And yeah, breaking down the raw truth of Kenya's deepening crisis, a nation caught between its democratic ideals and the violent force of state power. But here's the question we leave you with this morning. If this were South Africa, if our police were shooting into homes, arresting hundreds of people and using unmarked cars, would we still call ourselves a democracy? And do we still consider ourselves a democracy, considering everything that I just mentioned, the police are actually doing? And should the young people of South Africa maybe take a page from the young people of Kenya? Because the situation is similar. The situation is dire. Hundreds and thousands of unemployed graduates in South Africa continue to go without jobs. They have no hope. And the government is doing nothing, absolutely nothing about it. They continue to ignore the cries of young people. And it's a situation that is becoming increasingly unsustainable. Should the young people of South Africa flood the streets of Johannesburg, streets of Pretoria, call for their voices to be heard? You can engage with us. Our number is 0617660355. Send us a WhatsApp, send us a voice note, or you can comment on all of our various social media pages. We're streaming these conversations live, and you can use the hashtag news and views. This has been hashtag Africa Focus. We're going to take a quick break. News and views continues after this.